Have you ever left work feeling absolutely drained, unmotivated? And further, as you're going towards the next day, your anxiety levels are just shooting through the roof, knowing that you have to face it again. Well, maybe it wasn't a bad day that you were having. Maybe it's the culture. Today, I'm sharing with you 10 signs that you, my friend, may be in a toxic workplace and what you should do about it. I'm Tirsa Hall, leadership coach, master trainer, and strategic HR expert. And I have for many years helped companies as well as employees navigate work culture, leadership, and every other scenario that may be people-centric related. Here is the truth. Toxic work culture isn't always noticeable. Sometimes toxic culture is subtle, and we don't recognize it until it's already started to eat away at our self-esteem, our confidence, our health, and even bleeding into our personal life. So let's navigate this together. What's our first sign of a toxic work culture? High turnover. If people are leaving like children run out when there's recess time, that's a red flag. And not just any type of people leaving. High performing, good employees, that's usually a very bright red flag, and it's a sign or cue that something is broken in the organization. It could be the work culture itself. It could be that particular leader that's responsible for driving culture that is exuding toxic traits, or it could just simply be a lack of growth. Either way, you should be asking yourself, why is this happening? Our second sign that you're in a toxic workplace is passive aggressive communication or communication that somehow promotes or invokes fear. If you're constantly feeling like you're dancing on eggshells, worrying about or shifting away from blame, or that you don't feel comfortable to disagree with your leader or communicate something that's very different in terms of perspective, then that is a toxic workplace. Because good, productive leaders create an environment for you to be able to communicate. They give clarity in terms of their direction and communication, and they don't use manipulation as a strategy to motivate you in any kind of way to do what's necessary. So here's what's important to know about passive-aggressive leaders or communicators. They usually use sarcasm or vague language to criticize you, and often they are not clear and direct in any type of feedback they give. They imply what you've done incorrectly. So for example, let's say you made a mistake. They would say, I guess we'll have to clean this mess up somehow. That doesn't give you any direction on what mistake you made, what you needed to adjust, or how to improve it. It simply is making you sit in the feeling of being inadequate without any type of clarity. Or maybe you've had a situation where you've heard, well, if that's how you interpreted my communication, that again implies that you are the problem, that you interpreted instructions wrong, but doesn't address the fact that that leader may not have communicated with the clarity that's needed in order for you to be successful. So you again feel that draining feeling, that down feeling when you're leaving the work environment simply because that happened. Another one that I would share with you, I thought I was clear on the instructions. Maybe I wasn't. That's again sarcastic in tone, also implies that you're not smart enough to understand what was communicated and that somehow you are inadequate as a communicator, when really and truly it's that particular individual that is communicating in a way that needs a lot of work. Third sign that your workplace may be toxic is psychological safety is either very minuscule or non-existent. Are people talking about the real problems that are happening in the workplace, or is everyone moving along as if it doesn't exist? Do you see punishment when someone finally decides to stand up and speak about something that needs addressing or suggest an alternative? Those are signs that there is no psychological safety and people remain distraught with the challenges and are not able to advance themselves forward. Sign number 4, burnout is normalized. People who work through lunch are praising themselves because they worked through lunch and haven't eaten all day. Or people are logging into work at 2 a.m. in the morning to show that they are the quality employee or the best chosen employee. And leaders are praising them based on this practice and behavior. We need to stop normalizing these types of practices because this is toxic. Sign number 5 that you're in a toxic workplace: favoritism over fairness. How often do we see it happen in the workplace where certain individuals are allowed a certain level of freedom, aren't monitored, their shortcomings not addressed, while there's focus on another employee who is micromanaged, who is constantly pressured by their leader to produce a certain level of results. And we see that reflected even in promotions, where individuals have been promoted not because of their merit, not because of their hard work, but because of their close proximity to power. That is a very weakening point for work cultures. And that is a toxic process because what it does is it glorifies lack of performance and causes those that are performing to become demotivated. Number 6, gossiping replaces accountability. If people are constantly talking about what people are doing but never address the issue or matter to them, then you're having a toxic workforce that's fueled by gossiping. Because gossiping doesn't solve the challenge, it just shares information or things that are happening. But accountability is what provokes individuals to take action, or at least lets people know that there's a problem happening in the workplace. The longer this continues, then people are having to guess what's happening. People also start to act out based on lack of resolution. And we have, again, a toxic situation that's brewing. So if gossiping is looking very much like what I described, you, my friend, are in a toxic workplace. Toxic workplaces are also identified by things that are lacking. And one area is recognition. If there is no recognition for the hard work that's being done, even when you are working hard to create and make a miracle of sorts, delivering something in a very, very short window of time, or delivering something that required a lot of thought, that was an emergency or a crisis, and you still don't get the recognition, and that's just establishes some sort of normal expectation, well, that's what you're hired to do, then you, my friend, are in a toxic work environment and you may be eligible for benefits and damages. So we don't want this happening in your work environment. Toxic work culture is very much aligned with this type of behavior. When people are over criticized and not recognized for their hard work, they burn out. They no longer desire to give more. And you have high performers, especially, who, when they don't see the value of the work that they're putting in being recognized, they move on elsewhere. And I have another video, and I will link it below. Definitely check it out to see and understand what goes on in the mindset of a high performer before they leave. Recognition has to be a part of your day-to-day process in order for people to feel valued. And you should be getting recognition. You should be getting specific recognition on what you're doing to make an environment of work better. Number 8, you feel like a number and not a person. That speaks volumes. When you feel like a person, you have fulfillment. You come in with a sense of belonging. You know who you are and you see a space for you there. When you're a number, you're not valued. You're there to serve a purpose, but there's no deep connection to what it is that you provide or that you offer. If no one checks in to see how you're doing or checks to see if you need help with something that you might have had, or they haven't even noticed that you were gone or you weren't at work, those are cues that what the organization is valuing isn't you. If people are only recognizing you when there's a deadline or when there's work to be done or when something has not been done, that's usually a sign that they're not placing a high value on who you are. Number 9, leadership does not match the values. You hear it all the time, these lovely, beautiful mission statements, vision statements, core values. We are focused, we are caring, we are X, Y, and Z. But if the manager, the leader, the person that you report to is not exuding these things, and culture is just writings on the wall. A leader must match in action what they say, and their sayings and actions must match what is written on the wall. That is how we drive culture forward, and that's how we have a productive work culture. If your leader is saying we are all about respect, but they're calling you out of your name, if your leader says we care about you, but when you say that you're sick, they ask if you could still come in, or why didn't you let them know a day before, then that's not matching. And that's your sign that you're in a workplace that is not favorable. Our final sign of a toxic workplace is HR is either weaponized or HR checks out. As a seasoned HR professional that's been in the field for almost 20 years, I will tell you that it takes a lot for HR to check out. The entire integrity of an HR profession is to be able to look at both sides and represent and communicate the risks, the challenges, and the faults of either line staff or management, right? And so we are constantly walking that tightrope, and our job is to constantly communicate what we see at odds. So if HR has chosen to give up and is no longer even hearing or addressing the concerns that are happening, that is a toxic workplace. This topic is definitely a sensitive one because I often see a lot of employees say HR doesn't care or HR isn't working, and they discourage other people from truly putting forth their matters to HR and giving HR an opportunity to solve them. And we don't want that. We don't want you chasing the masses. We do want you to make every effort to communicate what is occurring to HR and see if there's something that's actually being done about it. HR are human after all, and there are some organizations where HR does not or is not allowed to operate within the true context of what they're hired for. But you shouldn't make any generalizations there. You really need to look at the core root of it. But if you see your HR professional has not or has given up, then that is a very heavy sign, because most of the joy that comes from working in an environment is your ability to be able to bring matters forward and to at least see something being done. The outcome may not be what you want it to, but at least you know that there's a process where investigations are happening, where there's communication happening as well. It's also important to know that HR fights a lot of battles that employees are unaware of. And so that process and the time it takes to change things, sometimes there's legal blocks that's stopping what is a good moral route to go. Sometimes there's moral routes that block what's a legal thing to do. It's a very complex situation that's happening behind the scenes, but what you should be focusing on is HR even listening attentively to what you're communicating? Is HR just coming to apply pressure when something is wrong and to hold you accountable from a disciplinary perspective? Or is there balance? When you go, do you see the same level of energy being put into the concerns that you've brought versus the disciplinary that you're facing? And I think that is a cue that will let you know that you are in a toxic workplace. So I've shared some of these suggestions along the way. Maybe you've looked at these 10 and you have 8 of 10, or you have a high number out of the 10 that we've talked about today. First thing, take a breath. You're not crazy. You've now understood that this is the environment that you're in. And this is perhaps the reason why you're so not motivated, why you're so frustrated, or why you're drained at the end of every day. What can you do from here? After taking a breath and looking at the situation, you really should document any type of scenarios that are happening in your working environment and look for the trends of them happening. Are they also happening with other people in the working environment? If it's a favoritism situation, are you seeing that there are people that are benefiting and you're not? How is your relationship with HR? Have you addressed these matters? What are some of the feedback that you're getting from HR on the situation? What's important to note is even as you document and communicate and stand up for yourself and seek resolution of some of the challenges at work, you might not be able to change what's happening in a work environment. Work cultures will only adjust if that is the goal of the organization who's holding the leaders accountable, or if that leader is seeing the need to truly change and follow the process. So it might boil down to your toxic work situation being where you get resolution, or it might boil down to you leaving that environment and finding a place that serves you in the spaces that you deserve it to be. Either way, work culture navigating is not for the weak. It is a challenge, but it's something that you must give time to, because you don't want this to eat away at your self esteem, your confidence, your personal life, simply because it's gone by unaddressed. Open your eyes for awareness, take action to communicate, and in those scenarios where you've done all those options, you now have the peace of mind to know that this has been attacked at every angle, and now you're choosing yourself and doing what's best for you. And I hope that you have the knowledge, perception, and the peace you need to move forward. If this video resonated with you, be sure to drop in the comments. And also, what are some of the signs that you picked up in your toxic work experiences? If you like this content and want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe so that you get the first notification when I post new videos. It's a pleasure. Have a great one. Bye.